There comes a moment, usually in the quiet hours when the house settles into stillness, when you begin to feel it. Not a physical ache, but something deeper. A weariness that has nothing to do with the body and everything to do with the weight you've been carrying. For decades, you've held doors open for certain people. You've answered every call, absorbed every criticism, carried every burden that wasn't yours to carry. And now, as the sun sets on your 6th decade and beyond, you're beginning to wonder if perhaps the heaviest thing you've been carrying isn't age itself, but the people who drain your life force with every interaction. Through meditation, we discover an ancient truth that the Buddha himself taught 26 centuries ago in the Sigalovada Sutta. He spoke with unusual directness about something most spiritual teachers avoid. There are people in your life, even those connected by blood, who are not friends at all. They are what he called enemies, disguised as friends. And the wisdom of aging lies not in enduring them out of misplaced loyalty, but in recognizing them with clear eyes and choosing your peace over their presence. This isn't about bitterness or anger. This is about liberation. The nature of mind becomes clearer with age, and what becomes unmistakably clear is this: you have walked through fire, survived storms, and earned the right to spend your remaining years in tranquility. Ancient wisdom teaches that compassion begins with oneself, and there is no compassion in allowing yourself to be diminished by relationships that drain rather than nourish. Today, we walk through the teachings the Buddha left us, examining the 5 types of people that must be released after 60, not with hatred, but with the gentle wisdom that knows when enough is enough. 1. The energy drainers, who take without giving. The Buddha was remarkably specific when he described the first enemy in disguise. He called them the takers. In the Sigalovada Sutta, he identified them through 4 unmistakable behaviors. They only take from you. They ask for much while giving little. They perform duties out of fear rather than care. And they offer service only to gain something for themselves. After 60 years of living, you've encountered them countless times. Perhaps you're thinking of one right now. These are the people who call only when they need something. The family member who appears at your door when they require money, childcare, or emotional labor, but vanishes when you reach out for connection. The friend who monopolizes every conversation with their problems, yet somehow never has time to hear about yours. The relative who remembers you exists only when they need a favor, a loan, or someone to validate their choices. The nature of mind shows us that energy is finite, especially as we age. Every interaction is an exchange, and in healthy relationships, that exchange nourishes both people. But the taker creates a one-way current that flows only toward themselves. They are emotional vampires, and after 6 decades of life, you no longer have the reserves to sustain them. What makes this particularly painful is that these takers often wrap their demands in the language of family obligation or friendship. They remind you of past connections, invoke shared history, or weaponize guilt to keep the tap flowing. But the Buddha understood something essential. True relationship is reciprocal. When the balance tips entirely to one side, what you have is not friendship, but exploitation dressed in familiar clothing. Consider this. How many conversations leave you feeling depleted? How many phone calls do you dread answering? How many visits require days of recovery afterward? These are not the marks of healthy connection. They are warning signs that someone is mining you for resources while offering nothing but the obligation to continue giving. The wisdom of letting go here is not cruelty, it's survival. You are not abandoning anyone by establishing boundaries. You are simply refusing to abandon yourself. The Buddha taught that each person must work out their own liberation. You cannot save someone by drowning yourself, and the taker, by their very nature, will pull you under if you continue to hold them up. 2. The critics who never evolve. There exists another category of person the Buddha might have recognized, though he spoke of them in different terms. Those who have made criticism their primary form of interaction. These are not people offering constructive feedback from a place of love. These are individuals who have crystallized into a pattern of judgment, and nothing you do will ever satisfy them. After 60, you've likely spent decades trying to prove yourself to someone. Perhaps a parent who never quite approved of your choices, a sibling who measures your life against their own and finds you wanting, a friend from your youth who cannot accept that you've both changed and who resents the person you've become, or even an adult child who criticizes your parenting, your lifestyle, your opinions, seemingly unable to see you as a full human being with your own journey. The nature of suffering, as the Buddha taught, often comes from attachment to others' opinions. But there's a particular suffering that comes from people who have appointed themselves as your judge and jury. They critique your appearance, your decisions, your relationships, your health choice, your spending, your beliefs. Nothing escapes their disapproval, and their favorite phrase is some variation of "you should." What makes these critics particularly toxic after 60 is that they prevent you from embracing the freedom that should come with age. This is the time to release external validation, to care less about others' approval, to finally live according to your own inner compass. But the chronic critic keeps you trapped in an old story, constantly defending yourself, constantly trying to justify your existence. Ancient wisdom teaches that the mind seeks peace through understanding, not through endless justification. When you let go of the chronic critic, you're not being defensive or petty. You're simply acknowledging that after 6 decades, you know yourself better than they ever will. Their criticism says more about their own unresolved issues than about your worth. The painful truth is that some critics will never evolve because they've built their identity around being the one who knows better. They derive their sense of superiority from keeping you in a diminished position, and no amount of achievement, growth, or transformation on your part will change their narrative, because your success threatens the role they've assigned themselves. Letting go might mean limiting contact drastically. It might mean ending conversations the moment criticism begins. It might mean accepting that this relationship will never be what you hoped and choosing your peace over their approval. The Buddha taught about the middle way, but sometimes the middle way between yourself and a chronic critic is simply distance. 3. The takers who never give. Distinct from the energy drainers, though related, are those the Buddha explicitly named, people who exist in a permanent state of taking. These relationships feel like pouring water into a bucket with no bottom. You give and give and give, and there's never enough. They always need more. This person might be a family member who has made it your job to solve their problems. Every financial crisis, every life decision, every emotional meltdown becomes your responsibility. You've bailed them out repeatedly, offered advice they never take, provided support that's never acknowledged, and still they return, hand outstretched, expecting you to fix what only they can fix. Or perhaps it's the friend who treats you as free therapy, unloading their trauma, drama, and daily complaints onto you with the assumption that your time, energy, and emotional labor are theirs for the taking. There's no reciprocity, no curiosity about your life, no energy directed back toward you. You are not a friend to them, you are a resource. Through meditation, we come to understand the difference between compassion and enabling. Compassion recognizes suffering and responds with wisdom. Enabling allows someone to avoid their own growth by constantly rescuing them from consequences. After 60, you've earned the clarity to know the difference. The Buddha taught about skillful means, about knowing when helping actually harms. When you continuously give to someone who never learns to give back, you're not building them up, you're preventing them from developing their own strength. You're keeping them dependent. And dependence is not the same as connection. What's particularly insidious about these relationships is the guilt they trigger when you finally consider pulling back. They've trained you to believe that you're responsible for their well-being, that saying no makes you selfish, that establishing limits makes you cold. But ancient wisdom teaches us that true generosity includes generosity toward yourself. Ask yourself honestly, what would happen if you stopped giving? Would they learn to stand on their own feet? Would they find other resources? Would they be forced to develop capabilities they've never cultivated because you've always been there to catch them? The answer is almost always yes. And your stepping back might be the most compassionate thing you could do, not just for yourself, but for them. Letting go of the chronic taker means accepting that you cannot save anyone. You can support, encourage, and offer wisdom, but you cannot live someone else's life for them. And after 6 decades of your own journey, you know this truth in your bones. Each person must walk their own path. 4. The guilt trippers who weaponize obligation. Perhaps the most difficult people to release are those who have mastered the art of guilt. These are individuals who have learned that they can control you through obligation, manipulation disguised as duty, and the strategic deployment of phrases like, "After all I've done for you," or "Family takes care of family," or "I can't believe you would abandon me like this." The guilt tripper understands your values and uses them against you. They know you take commitment seriously, so they frame every request as a sacred obligation. They know you care about being a good person, so they imply that refusing them proves you're not. They know you fear being seen as selfish or uncaring, so they position any boundary as an act of cruelty. The Buddha taught about the middle way, but he also taught about wise discernment. Compassion does not mean self-sacrifice. Loving kindness does not mean allowing yourself to be manipulated. And family connection does not mean tolerating abuse wrapped in the language of love. After 60, you've accumulated enough life experience to recognize emotional manipulation when you see it. The guilt tripper's demands escalate over time because giving in once teaches them that guilt works. What started as occasional requests becomes constant expectation. What began as subtle pressure becomes overt manipulation. And you find yourself living according to their agenda, not your own. What makes guilt particularly destructive is that it operates beneath conscious awareness. You don't immediately recognize you're being manipulated. You just feel bad, wrong, selfish for wanting time alone, for prioritizing your health, for choosing how to spend your own resources. The guilt tripper has convinced you that your needs don't matter as much as theirs, and that questioning this arrangement makes you the problem. Ancient wisdom teaches that our actions should come from clarity, not coercion. When you act out of guilt, you're not truly choosing, you're submitting. And this submission breeds resentment that poisons whatever genuine affection might have existed. You begin to dread interactions, to feel trapped, to fantasize about freedom. This is not how any relationship should feel. The path forward requires something difficult, saying no without justification, establishing boundaries without negotiation, and allowing them to be disappointed. Their disappointment is not your emergency. Their anger is not your responsibility. Their attempt to make you feel guilty is not a command you must obey. Letting go of the guilt tripper often means a complete shift in how you engage with them. It might mean seeing them only when you genuinely want to, not when they demand it. It might mean refusing to explain or defend your choices. It might mean accepting that they will tell others you've changed, become cold, or abandoned them, and choosing your peace over their narrative. 5. The past. Dwellers who keep you trapped in old stories. The final category the Buddha might recognize comprises those who refuse to see who you've become. These are people stuck in a version of you that no longer exists, and they're determined to keep you locked in that old identity. Perhaps they knew you in your youth and still treat you as that uncertain young person. Perhaps they witnessed your failures and won't allow you to be anything but your mistakes. Perhaps they benefited from you staying small, and your growth threatens them. The past dweller brings up your old struggles in every conversation. They remind you of who you used to be, decisions you regret, versions of yourself you've outgrown. They do this not to support your journey, but to prevent you from moving forward. Because if you've changed, it means they could change too. And change requires work they're unwilling to do. Through meditation, we discover that the present moment is all we truly have. Yet the past dweller pulls you back repeatedly, refusing to acknowledge your transformation. They cling to old grievances, ancient conflicts, decisions made decades ago. They treat your personal evolution as a betrayal, as if growing means abandoning them. After 60 years of living, you've earned the right to be seen for who you are now, not who you were at 20 or 30 or 40. You've done the work of self-examination, healing, growth. You've changed your patterns, learned from mistakes, developed wisdom through experience. And yet this person insists on treating you as if none of that matters. The nature of mind shows us that identity is fluid, not fixed. We are not the same person we were yesterday, let alone decades ago. To be healthy is to evolve, to learn, to transform. But the past dweller mistakes stagnation for loyalty and growth for betrayal. They want you to remain who you were because your remaining unchanged makes them feel less alone in their own stagnation. What makes this particularly painful is when these past dwellers are family members who refuse to update their understanding of you. The sibling who still sees you through the lens of childhood competition. The parent who cannot acknowledge you as an adult with your own wisdom. The old friend who wants to relive glory days that weren't actually glorious. Ancient wisdom teaches about impermanence, the truth that all things change, including ourselves. The Buddha understood that clinging to what was prevents us from embracing what is. And when someone clings to an old version of you, they're not loving you, they're loving a memory. They're in relationship with someone who no longer exists. Letting go of the past dweller means insisting on being seen. It means refusing to rehash old stories that no longer serve you. It means walking away from conversations that keep circling back to who you used to be. It means accepting that this person may never acknowledge your growth and choosing to honor your journey regardless. Buddhist compassion does not equal self-sacrifice. Here we must address a profound misunderstanding that keeps many people trapped in toxic relationships. The belief that compassion requires self-sacrifice. This misconception has caused immeasurable suffering, particularly among those who deeply study spiritual teachings. Let us be absolutely clear. The Buddha never taught that you must set yourself on fire to keep others warm. True compassion, as taught in the Buddhist tradition, includes yourself. There is a famous teaching where the Buddha asks, "You can search the entire universe for someone who deserves your love and compassion more than you do yourself, and you will not find that person anywhere. You, yourself, deserve your love and compassion as much as anybody else in the entire universe." This teaching is often overlooked because it contradicts the martyr narrative many of us absorbed. We were taught that goodness means endless giving, that spiritual people sacrifice themselves, that setting boundaries is selfish. But the Buddha taught something far more nuanced. Wisdom includes discernment, and compassion requires boundaries. The nature of suffering teaches us that when we deplete ourselves caring for others, we eventually have nothing left to give. We become resentful, exhausted, bitter, and from this depleted state, we cannot offer genuine compassion to anyone. Self-sacrifice is not sustainable, and what cannot be sustained will eventually collapse. Consider what flight attendants tell you about oxygen masks. Secure your own before helping others. This isn't selfishness, it's wisdom. You cannot help anyone if you're unconscious, and you cannot offer true compassion from a place of depletion, resentment, or self-abandonment. The Buddha also taught about idiot compassion, a term later used by Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron. Idiot compassion is when we avoid necessary confrontation or fail to set healthy boundaries in order to maintain false peace. It's being nice when we should be clear. It's tolerating harm because we don't want to seem unkind. This isn't compassion at all, it's fear masquerading as virtue. After 60, you have the life experience to know the difference between compassion and enabling, between kindness and self-betrayal, between love and obligation. You know that sometimes the most compassionate act is saying no. Sometimes wisdom means distance. Sometimes love means letting someone experience the consequences of their choices. Ancient wisdom teaches about the 4 Brahma Viharas: loving, kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. Note that last one, equanimity. This means maintaining inner peace regardless of external circumstances. It means not allowing others' dysfunction to disturb your own center. It means caring about someone's well-being without taking responsibility for fixing their life. Letting go with love, not from anger. Perhaps the most important distinction to understand is this: letting go of someone is not the same as hating them. You can release a relationship with compassion. You can establish boundaries without anger. You can choose your peace while still wishing them well. The Buddha taught that resentment is like holding a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. When you let go of toxic people while harboring bitterness, you're still chained to them emotionally. True freedom comes when you can release them with genuine loving kindness, understanding that they too are struggling, they too are suffering, they too are doing the best they can with their current level of awareness. This doesn't mean you must maintain contact with them. This doesn't mean you're required to explain your boundaries or justify your choices. It simply means that internally you release the anger, the hurt, the need for them to change or understand or apologize. You let go of waiting for them to become different. You accept them as they are, and you accept that who they are is not healthy for you to be around. Through meditation, we practice this release. We visualize the person, we acknowledge the pain they've caused, and we say internally, "I release you with love. I wish you peace on your journey, and I choose peace on mine." This isn't about them. This is about freeing yourself from the burden of resentment. Ancient wisdom teaches that peace is not found by controlling others or changing external circumstances, but by changing our relationship to what is. You cannot make a toxic person healthy. You cannot force an energy drainer to give back. You cannot convince a critic to stop criticizing or a guilt tripper to stop manipulating. But you can change your response. You can choose distance. You can establish boundaries. You can let go. After 60 years, you understand that your time is precious and limited. Every day you spend managing someone else's dysfunction is a day you're not living your own life. Every conversation that leaves you drained is energy you could have spent on joy, creativity, rest, or genuine connection. Every moment spent defending yourself to someone determined to misunderstand you is a moment stolen from your peace. The wisdom of age is knowing that you've given enough. You've tried enough. You've sacrificed enough. And now it's time to live the rest of your life in alignment with your own values, surrounded by people who nourish rather than deplete you, who appreciate rather than criticize, who give as much as they take. This is not selfishness. This is self-preservation. This is not cruelty. This is wisdom. This is not abandonment. This is liberation. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering. Sometimes we're attached not just to pleasant things, but to painful relationships because they're familiar. We're attached to being needed, to playing the rescuer, to proving our worth through endless giving. Letting go means releasing all of it. The person, the role, and the story about who you are in relation to them. As you sit with this teaching, notice what arises. Perhaps relief, knowing you have permission to choose yourself. Perhaps guilt, conditioned by years of believing your needs matter less. Perhaps grief, mourning what you hoped this relationship could be. All of these feelings are valid. Allow them, witness them, and then, gently, return to your breath and to this truth. You deserve peace in your remaining years. You have walked a long path. You have carried heavy burdens. You have given generously, loved deeply, and endured much. Now, in this final third of your life, you're being called not to add more, but to release, not to keep proving yourself, but to rest in the knowledge that you are enough, not to manage others, but to honor yourself. The 5 people we've discussed, the energy drainers, the critics, the takers, the guilt trippers, and the past dwellers, they will continue their patterns whether you're present or not. Your absence will not destroy them, but your presence while depleting yourself serves no one. Let them walk their path, you walk yours, and perhaps, in the quiet that follows their departure from your daily life, you'll discover something unexpected. Space. Space for new connections that nourish you. Space for old friends who've always seen you clearly. Space for activities that bring joy rather than obligation. Space for rest, reflection, and the profound peace that comes from finally, putting down what was never yours to carry. This is the wisdom the Buddha offered 26 centuries ago, and it remains as relevant today. Recognize those who drain you, honor them from a distance, and choose the path that leads to your own liberation, not because you're selfish, but because you're wise. Not because you don't care, but because you care about your own life as much as you care about theirs. Not because relationship doesn't matter, but because true relationship requires reciprocity, respect, and genuine care. May you find the courage to let go. May you trust that you deserve peace. And may you spend your remaining years surrounded not by those who demand your light, but by those who celebrate it. The Buddha taught that freedom is possible in this very life. Sometimes freedom begins with a single word, no, and sometimes it begins with turning away from what harms you and walking with quiet dignity toward what heals you. If this message has touched something within you, if it has named a truth you've been circling around, perhaps this is your moment. Not to act hastily or in anger, but to simply acknowledge it is time. Time to honor yourself as much as you've honored others. Time to protect your peace as fiercely as you've protected theirs. Time to live, truly live, the years you have remaining. You've earned this. You deserve this. And the path forward, though it may feel lonely at first, leads to a peace that no toxic relationship could ever offer. Walk it with compassion for yourself, with wisdom about what you need, and with the deep knowing that letting go is not the end of love, but the beginning of self-love. And self-love, after 60 years of giving, is perhaps the most revolutionary act of all.